This day in sports history.
Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
Hey, and welcome back to This Day in Sports History, a member of the Sports History Network. Check out sportshistorynetwork.com for more info and to find more podcasts. This is your host, Steve White. It's September 3rd, and on this day in 1906, Nevada struck it rich with another moneymaker. Since 1859, Nevada has been a place people have gone to strike it rich. When the Comstock lode was discovered then, and more than $400 million worth of silver was unearthed, the state was admitted to the Union, since that kind of money could fund the Civil War effort. In 1900, another stretch of silver was uncovered, and then in 1904, gold was found. A town popped up nearby that discovery called Goldfield. After a few years, and people had flocked to the area and then moved on, the folks that remained in Goldfield wanted to attract people back to the area for reasons other than gold. There were some interesting first thoughts that I'm sure were preceded by the phrase, "There aren't any bad ideas, gentlemen." Well, one enterprising shopkeeper in town suggested that they build a big fountain in the middle of town that would be filled with beer every morning. Another, possibly after reading Frank Baum's Wizard of Oz, published 4 years earlier, suggested taking flight in a hot air balloon and dropping gold coins on the streets of Goldfield. It was Tex Rickard, a man who would later become known as the best boxing promoter of the early 20th century, who suggested that the town host a boxing match to draw thousands to the town. That idea had some weight to it, and almost immediately a sports commission was formed. $50,000 was put forth to attract two top-notch fighters, and Rickard was put in charge of, well, pretty much doing everything. Rickard set his sights on Danish boxer Oscar Battling Matthew Nelson, who most people referred to as Bat, but fought under the name Battling Nelson. He was a little tough to get in touch with, though, and when contact was finally made, he had little interest in the early discussions. But he would warm to the idea after it became known that Joe Gans would be in the opposite corner and that the durable Dane would be getting $23,000 to step into the ring and Gans would only be getting $10,000. The fight drew the many thousands to the town that the organizers had hoped. An arena had been especially built for the fight, and more than 8,000 people from all walks of life and classes meandered in to find their seats on this day. It was especially noted that there were about 300 women in attendance for the Nelson-Gans fight. It was hot and dry in Goldfield, as it tends to be in early September in the desert of Nevada. As the town clock struck 3, Joe Gans entered the ring, but he was feeling a little bit weary, though. He had been a few pounds over the weight limit the day before, and Nelson's fight manager had insisted that he drop those pounds before the fight, or his man would not be getting into the ring. Nelson climbed in next. The ring was a bit smaller than typical, too. Nelson's team had insisted on the smaller dimensions because they thought their guy would have an advantage. Nelson was known to be a vicious puncher, a little bit of a dirty fighter, and a guy with a granite jaw. He loved delivering body blows, especially kidney punches. Gans was known as a more classical fighter. Boxing historians say that Gans was one of the best fighters pound for pound in the history of the sport. He had a record of 139-5 with 49 knockouts as he stepped into the center of the ring as the bell to start the fight rang out. Gans controlled the first 10 rounds, putting his boxing skill on full display. But again, Nelson could take a punch, or a lot of them. In the 11th round, Nelson resorted to his old tricks, though, gouging Gans in the eye, headbutting him, but it just didn't seem to have any effect. The fight carried on into the 42nd round, and an increasingly frustrated Nelson drilled Gans with a punch below the belt. Gans gasped, but did not go down. The referee stepped in to issue a warning, but Nelson was not listening to that, and he delivered another direct shot to Gans' groin, and this time he crumpled. The referee stopped the fight, disqualified Nelson for the low blow, and awarded Gans the victory. So, more than likely, this fight is between two fighters that you never heard of before. And I'll be honest, I didn't know about this fight until I read about it in Burt Sugar's book, The Great Fights. But here's the thing. This fight was big for a few reasons, but one of the biggest is this was one of the first fights to be fought in Nevada. It was the start of Tex Rickard as a promoter, and he became a giant in the sport in the first half of the 20th century. It led to more and more fights coming to the desert of Nevada and is considered the bedrock that boxing built on to one day rise in Las Vegas as one of the great places to stage a world-class championship fight. But maybe the time has come to again explore the idea of putting that beer fountain in the middle of the town square. On this day in 1977, Japan's Sadaharu Oh hit career homer number 756, passing Hank Aaron's total. Now, before you start yelling at whatever device you're listening to this podcast on, I get it. There is a huge difference between Japanese professional baseball and Major League Baseball. Oh said as much after hitting this home run on this day. Japanese ballparks tend to have smaller dimensions, and the pitching is not as good as Major League Baseball. The good Japanese pitchers tend to find their way to the States to play in the MLB. But the season is shorter in Japan, so just keep that in mind. So again, on this day, in his 19th season, Oh hit career homer number 756. With a full count, Oh drilled a Yasumiro Suzuki pitch over the wall down the right field line in the third inning. The game was played in the Yomiuri Giants home park of Korakuen Stadium that had respectable distances of 396 to center, 361 in the alleys, but it was only 288 down the line where Oh hit his world record-breaking home run ball. The shortest porch in the majors by comparison is down the right field line at Fenway at 302 feet. So yeah, smaller field dimensions, but still, that's a lot of dingers. As Oh rounded the bases, the 55,000 in attendance roared. Streamers flew out of the stands. He was met at home plate by his teammates and handed a giant baseball made of flowers. Oh would play another 3 years and go on to hit 896 career home runs. Now, he admitted that the major leagues would have been a much more difficult experience, and he would not have hit nearly as many home runs if he faced major league pitching in major league ballparks. Oh also held the single-season home run record of 55. Now, this is interesting because when foreign players started infiltrating the Japanese league, Japanese pitchers became very protective of Oh's single-season mark. When Oh managed the Giants after he retired from the game, there were 3 different instances when foreign players were a home run or 2 away from the season record, and the Japanese pitchers refused to throw strikes to those players, purposefully throwing away from them. It wasn't until 2013 that Oh's record of 55 home runs in a season was topped by Curaçao's Vladimir Valentin. On this day in 2008, it was the first official use of replay in Major League Baseball. The New York Yankees led 6-3 in the top of the 9th. They were playing Tampa at Tropicana Field, and with a man on and 2 outs, Alex Rodriguez hit an A-bomb down the left field line. It was ruled a home run on the field, but it was close enough where there was just a little bit of doubt. Commissioner Bud Selig okayed the use of replay for certain calls back on the 28th of August, but it wasn't tested until this day when Devil Rays manager Joe Maddon requested the review of A-Rod's homer. The call was confirmed, and the Yankees went on to win the game 8-4. Now, I said this was the first official use of replay, but it wasn't the first time that replay had been used to confirm or reverse a call. Back in 1999, umpire Frank Pulley used a dugout camera to look at a close call on whether a ball was a home run or a ground rule double. The play had been ruled a home run on the field, but Pulley changed it to a ground rule double after watching the replay. After that incident, Selig decreed that replay could not be used until he made it official 9 years later. And on this day in 1970, the world said goodbye to Vince Lombardi, who died at the age of 57. If you're a sports fan listening to my sports history podcast, you don't need me telling you that Lombardi won 105 games, including playoff wins in his 15 years as a head coach, or that he coached 5 NFL championship teams, including wins in the first 2 Super Bowls. In 1970, a visit to the doctor in June revealed colon cancer. In late July, he was told it was inoperable and his situation was terminal. When he passed away a little after 7 in the morning on this day, he was surrounded by his wife, both his parents, his 2 kids, and 6 grandkids. And time now for today's non-sports Did You Know? There is a rose bush in Hildesheim, Germany, that is thought to be the oldest rose on Earth. As local lore goes, in the year 815, Louis the Pious was on a hunting trip when he left behind a relic of the Virgin Mary. When he returned to retrieve it, the relic had become entangled in a rose bush. It was a sign of the divine, and so the relic stayed. Louis the Pious built a church to protect the rose bush, and that rose bush is still there today and even survived a bombing in World War II that destroyed the church around it. That's all for today. I'll have more tomorrow on This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.